My husband, 32, and I, female 24, just got married 3 weeks ago, and we're currently celebrating our honeymoon. The plan was to travel to different countries in Europe, Asia, and Africa for 2 months. We're currently in Spain, and we're supposed to take a plane to Morocco in 2 days. However, my husband wants to cut the trip short and return to our home now. The thing is, his brother is in a horrible situation. His wife and daughter had a car crash, and they're in the hospital. The kid is fine, but his wife has to be in a little longer in the hospital. That's all I know. So I told my husband that I understood he wanted to support his brother, but that he's not a doctor, so he can't do anything to help, really. And his brother's wife is fine. She probably only has a broken leg, so she needs more days in the hospital. I told him to just call his brother and ask to talk with his wife so he can send her his best wishes. And that's all he can do, honestly. His parents and his in-laws are helping with the kids, so there's really nothing they need help with. I told him our honeymoon was important because it was a time for us to enjoy ourselves and spend together. He wasn't having any of it. He called me selfish, and then he kicked me out of our bedroom. I had to ask for a new one until he decided to let me in again. He told me that he was leaving tomorrow because he needed to support his brother and told me I could continue the trip by myself. But that's not the point of the honeymoon at all. I told him so, and he said that if he had known how witchy I was, he would have never dated me. Am I really wrong here? Edit. We met in Thailand, dated for 6 months, and went to America to get married, but I'm not a citizen yet. We were going to live in America, but now I'm not sure. My family's from Thailand and lives there. They're happy with the marriage and they like my husband. My dad approved of him and said he's good. Sometimes my husband shares information with me, but sometimes he tells me that I won't understand or I don't need to know. He's very private. He doesn't allow me in the room when he speaks to his family, so I really don't know anything other than what my husband told me. I can't ask his brother because I don't have his phone number. Girl, you went to the US on a tourist visa and got married? OP, do you have any evidence that your marriage is legal? Did you obtain a marriage license? Did you sign anything at any time before, during, or after the ceremony? Are you out of your mind? You got married after dating this stranger for 6 months, and he doesn't let you talk to his family? Either way, please get the manager of the hotel to accompany you to his room and go inside with you while you get your stuff and your passport. This is completely a not the idiot situation. Her husband's refusing to disclose the condition of the sister-in-law because OP doesn't need to know and he doesn't want to discuss it with her. Yeah, now I know why a 32-year-old marries someone in their early 20s. Much easier to control. No woman his age would put up with that BS. And the husband doesn't allow her to be in the room when he calls his family to get updates, so she doesn't even know anything beyond sister-in-law and niece were in a car accident. Unhinged behavior from this guy. OP's husband probably led OP and her family, Thais, to think he's this wealthy American, and in reality, he doesn't have the money actually to have a 2-month-long honeymoon. Most likely he came up with a story on why they needed to return to the States and refused to let her communicate with anyone in his family or tell her what was wrong with sister-in-law. That was my thought. He's out of money. He lied to her and her family about his financial status and probably never even booked the whole trip. So let's focus on your safety, OP. Do you have your passport and driver's license? If not, go to your country's embassy or consulate. Ask your hotel to help you get there if need be. Do you have your plane tickets, hotel reservation info, and transportation info? If not, get them. Do you have access to a credit or debit card in your name only? Do you have access to your financial accounts? You need this to get home. Can you contact your family and friends to tell them about this situation? You need help to get home. Can you contact whoever performed the wedding ceremony to ask if they filed a marriage certificate or license, or whatever makes it legal in your country? If they have, ask them how to annul it immediately. If not, and there are no legal documents, you dodged another bullet. Do not go back to this person. He's not healthy for you. My female 24, fiance male 24, has had a complicated life. His dad abandoned him before he was born, and his mother was a single mother for some years until she met her husband, and they had 2 kids together. From what my fiance told me, his mother was lovely, but his stepdad was a total idiot. Once he had his own kids, he let my fiance know that he was worthless compared to his own kids. I'm afraid I have to disagree about his mother being nice, because she enabled this behavior from her husband to her own kid, but I wasn't there, so I can't know for sure. My fiance likes gaming and anime. He has since he was a kid. However, he was shamed by his stepfather because of it. Their relationship is not good, and it's all his stepfather's fault. He never tried to be a parent for him and hated having to keep him in the house. My fiance's grandmother told me this. When he was a teen, everything was an issue, from his hobbies to friends. Anything he did was wrong. Well, anyway, he's in college now and is studying to be a programmer. He's doing great. His mom invited us over to dinner. We drove there, and luckily, we didn't have to put up with his stepfather for too long because he wasn't home when we got there. He arrived just a little before lunch was served. After eating, we hung out in the living room when my fiance's mom asked him about college. He started talking about his grades, his classes, and other school-related stuff. His stepfather asked his sister, who's a senior in high school, if she had been studying. She said she did, and he said great, because she needs to be ahead for next year. He then explained that his daughter was getting ready because she'll go into law school next year. He's a lawyer too. And then he said the comment that made me snap. He told my fiance that law school was hard and being good at it is something to brag about because everyone can play video games all day, but not everyone can graduate from a serious career. He literally said this. I looked over at my fiance and he was sad. He didn't say anything, but I know him, so I snapped. I told him that if he thought that studying programming was playing video games all day, then he was far more ignorant than I thought he was. I originally planned to stop there, but then I got caught up and told him that he was an idiot for dragging my fiance down on purpose. I also told him that he must have had a miserable life if he's so focused on causing pain to others. Nobody said anything, and my fiance asked to leave, so we did. He's not angry at me, quite the opposite. He thanked me for standing up for him. I made sure that he knew I supported and loved him. However, he got a message later from his mother about how rude I was for disrespecting his stepdad and how I ruined the day. I honestly don't care, and neither does he, but I want to know if I was too rude or not. Not the idiot. It's deeply disturbing that his mother thinks that you ruined the day, while she accepted her husband's behavior as something normal. It may be the biggest problem, because if she gives your fiancé an ultimatum, he may break and submit to her demands. You won't win with his stepfather's shadow without destroying the mother's influence. Right? If someone said anything remotely like this to my son, there would be some pretty firm consequences. OP, you are a great partner. He should consider limiting contact with his mother for her role in all of this. Just remember, on that end, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. He'll have to realize that mom's a toxic enabler who cares more about her new family than her son. My ex and I have 2 kids together, female and male teens. While I love both of my kids, I don't like the way my son behaves, and I believe it's my ex's fault. She favors our son to the point that he's become really spoiled and doesn't treat his sister well. We finalized our divorce recently and decided both kids are old enough to choose. My son wanted to rotate between homes each week. My daughter said she wants to think about it. Later in private, she told me that she wanted to stay with me full time, but she also didn't want her brother there. So after thinking about it for a while, I told my son and ex that I would take my daughter full time and my son should stay with her. He's not welcome at my home until I see some changes in his behavior and he starts being nice to his sister. They think I'm the idiot. You are the idiot for blaming your son's behavior on your wife and choosing your daughter over your son. It sounds like the whole family might benefit from therapy. Have you considered that abandoning your son might create additional mental health issues in your family? Step up and get involved in your son's behavior rather than finger-wagging at your son and ex-wife as if you had nothing to do with it. If the wife treated the son as the golden child and prioritized him over the daughter, what should OP have done? Forcing her to treat them both equally? And how exactly? OP's protecting his daughter from abusive bullying caused by the son. This bullying will not stop unless the ex makes changes. If the ex enables him, he'll only get worse. I'm not usually for parents picking between their kids, but you have to protect your kids from each other. I think this story's way too intentionally vague to make an accurate judgment. We need to know precisely what your son is doing that you classify as abusive. I'm leaning more towards you are the idiot. How about you start trying to actually raise your son? How exactly is it just the mom's fault? Did you have no say in his parenting? You're pathetic for blaming your own child for you being a crappy, inattentive parent. My son makes fun of his sister's speech impediment to the point she refuses to talk around him. Also, once he was aware of her self-esteem issues, he started calling her ugly all the time. Also, my son doesn't have a single chore to do at home, and if I give him one, my ex will do it instead. OMG, the kid is purposely making his sister feel bad about herself, and your ex is an enabler. You are not the idiot for protecting your daughter. What kind of mistreatment is she getting from your son if she doesn't even want to stay near him or with her mother? Agree. If your son is making your daughter feel unsafe and her mom's not protecting her, then you need to step up. These people don't read or understand what the man is saying. He said he tried to punish his son, but the mother would overrule him. You can talk until you're blue in the face, but if one parent allows bad behavior in a child, unless you can get them away from that parent, you're fighting a losing battle. I've been with my husband since we were teens, and he's always been open about the fact that his lifestyle would have been entirely different had we not met at such a young age, and if our circumstances had been different. His friend Jake likes to joke about how I was lucky I met my husband when I did. I usually don't take it personally, but he brought it up while my husband wasn't within earshot, and he told me how he didn't think we could have ended up married if we met as adults. When I asked him why, he told me that if I was being honest with myself, I could see my husband was the type to date a bunch of models before bagging himself a trophy wife at 45. He knew I was offended because he tried to turn the conversation around by saying I was too smart to be a trophy wife and that my husband wouldn't have been my type if I had met him as an adult either. I told my husband that Jake thinks I'm too ugly for him after making him promise not to say anything to him. I did go into more detail about the conversation, and my husband didn't seem that upset before we went to bed. He even jokingly asked me if I was trying to fish for compliments. He never said anything to Jake until they had a boys' night when he blew up at him. I don't know what happened exactly, but apparently it was bad, and my husband was really angry with Jake for calling me ugly, which Jake denies. So Jake's accusing me of trying to cause issues between them by lying, since he didn't say I was ugly even once. I know he's been calling me both insecure and vain behind my back to their friends. I did try to explain what happened exactly to my husband, but it only makes him angrier at Jake every time I bring it up. Am I the idiot? Not the idiot. And I mean, did he not call you ugly? Like, what is, my husband was the type to date a bunch of models before bagging himself a trophy wife at 45 supposed to mean, if not saying you aren't pretty enough for him? The guy sounds like a major jerk, and you handled this really well. What did he hope to prove or get out of the conversation? It seems like Jake doesn't want you to be together, and he's trying to sow the seeds of doubt. In a backhanded way, he did call you ugly, or at least not beautiful to some standards. I could poke holes in what you did here, but to my mind, Jake is by far the biggest idiot in this whole thing. Also, it's very rich that Jake is accusing you of causing issues between them when he's the one who tried to make you feel less than deserving of your happy marriage. This dude needs to be cut out of your friend group. He's clearly not a kind or supportive friend. Ironically, the full telling of what Jake said to OP shows that Jake has a very low opinion of OP's husband, who is ostensibly his friend. It reveals he thinks OP's husband is shallow and would treat women as objects and trophies if he wasn't already married. If I were the husband, I'd be angry at Jake for insulting my wife and me. I, female 23, recently went on a camping trip with 3 other friends, my guy friend Theo and 2 others, a guy and a girl. At first I shared a tent with my female friend, but after a few days, she and the other guy decided they wanted to share one instead. So Theo and I ended up sharing a tent. I was okay with this, and he seemed fine too. But when the time actually came and we went to bed, he seemed really uncomfortable and tense. He kept tossing and turning and trying to make conversation, which was terribly awkward. At one point I told him that I'd like to fall asleep now, and he said okay. But then he kept fidgeting, and I was so tired from the day, so it was just annoying. So I decided to grab some blankets and told him that I'd sleep outside. He said that that was not a good idea, and I told him I'd rather get a good night's sleep. We started whispering in the dark, and I told him to sleep outside, so it worked out for everyone. He was unhappy with this and told me I couldn't just kick him out. I told him I'd do it, but he didn't want this either. At this point I was truly fed up, and I asked him to offer solutions. He ultimately went to sleep outside. In the morning I woke up and he was in the tent with me, but grumbled that he just came in the morning. I felt energized and well rested, but he looked super disheveled, and you could tell he didn't sleep at all. Now he's just giving me weird glances and seems annoyed. When our friends found out what happened, they called me mean for making him sleep outside and said we could have solved the issue differently. Am I the idiot? Edit. Theo talks about me a lot, but in a jokey way. For example, he often points out how different we are. I'm more of a homebody bookworm. He's the complete opposite, and that it would cause many problems in marriage. Yes, marriage. I just laughed it off and never took it seriously. Info. You do realize that the other guy and the other girl were purposefully trying to hook you up with Theo, right? And the reason he was fidgeting and super anxious was that they had been hyping him up to make a move, but he was too afraid to make said move. That's also why he didn't want you sleeping outside, and why he didn't want to sleep outside. It's also why he came back to the tent. This was a setup. And he talks about marriage? I'm sorry, my dude. I think your guy friend has a crush on you, to say the least, but I suspect that he's shy and scared, sleeping in the same tent with a girl he has a crush on. I think your friends are also to blame for putting you both in a tough spot, especially since your original sleeping plans were changed, and you've never slept in the same room as this person. They shouldn't call you mean for also being the ones that made the situation happen in the first place. You offered to sleep outside, but he wanted to do the gentleman thing and take your place. It ended up being his choice, but maybe he expected you to change your mind and invite him back in, and that's why he was grumpy the next morning. Either way, not your problem. Next time, have your own tent.